early action for 2021? I think absolutely. I think with early action and early decision, of course they're different, but one of the things that schools are looking for right now is demonstrated interest. And you can't go to the school, you can't go and take a college tour, you can't demonstrate interest. So one of the great ways to demonstrate interest in a school and to say, I really want to go to this school, is the early action or early decision. Hang on, let me see. Sorry, I'm just going through the questions. So if the admissions aren't based on ACT, SAT tests, what would be more stressed when people are making decisions about who to approve? That's a great question. And that comes down to those holistic measures that we were talking about. So they're going to look at what you bring to the school. And I think this is one of those areas where I think of college admissions, the application and the acceptance, and then the student finding the school that they like. It's almost like a marriage. So when you find a school that you like and the school likes you, and you can see that you have this future together, and the terms of the contract are going to be good, and you're both going to benefit from that, that's when the school is a really good fit. So for schools right now, they're looking for other ways to see if the student is a good fit. So again, you can do that through a lot of different ways. The early action. The other thing you can do is to reach out to schools via social media. Make sure that you're demonstrating interest by following schools, by interacting with schools on social media. All of that interaction is actually calculated by the school when they are judging how interested you are in the school. And the other thing that this affects is the amount of merit aid that you will receive. So schools don't want to offer merit aid to students who aren't going to end up going to that school. So if the school sees that you're interacting on Facebook and you've commented on their LinkedIn posts or their Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat or anything, it's going to put a point in your column. And then when you go to apply, they're going to put in an algorithm of, what things you've done as a student and what boxes you've checked. And that's going to help them make their decisions. So that's another way that you can demonstrate interest virtually. Okay, I said that. Sorry, guys, I'm just going through. A question, really quick, a question about tuition rising. That really isn't, I haven't heard of any school that is going to raise tuition within the COVID-19 era. I'm going to go to the next slide, and then I'm going to go back to questions. So some of the ways that we can help with college admissions is to start early. Instead of stressing out at 11th grade or 12th grade, a student can start in 9th grade and start compiling who they are, what they want to be. And of course, this is going to change, and it's a very fluid, it's a fluid dynamic. But what it does is, and this is done on our platform, it helps the student start early and then stress less. So you're not in 11th grade saying, what clubs was I a part of? Where was I a leader? And most importantly, what could I have done differently? By 11th grade, your trajectory is pretty much set, as opposed to 9th grade, where you can say, hey, I haven't joined an extracurricular, or I haven't been in a leadership role, or I haven't contributed to community. So starting those kinds of self-reflection and those kinds of documenting what you've accomplished early and often makes a huge difference. Okay. So I'm seeing a lot of questions again about SAT scores. So let's just go through those. For the class of 2022, will SAT scores matter? I think that this is one of those things that we really have to take colleges on their word. And colleges right now are saying, even the most selective colleges, that testing requirements are suspended. Now, if you take the SAT and you do well, I would encourage anyone to still submit that score, with the exception of, I think Catholic University is completely dropping theirs. I think there are like 2 or 3 other schools that have said they don't want to see your SAT scores, whether you've taken it, whether you haven't, whatever. They do not want to see it. But short of those schools, if it's going to help you, absolutely submit it. So will I have a lower chance of getting into college if I don't submit my SAT scores? Again, I think we have to just take colleges at their word, and they are saying that that they will favor students, or they will not favor students who submit an SAT score. So I think we really have to just follow their lead on this, and they haven't given any indication that that this won't be the case. Oh, if one were to take an SAT test after an early action deadline, is there anything the student could do to submit the future score? That's a great question. I think that would depend on the college. I know that some colleges, and this is absolutely only because of COVID. I know that some colleges are going to be more lenient on when you can submit things because of COVID. It's such a dynamic situation that we've never been in, that my guess would be that if you had scores that you wanted to submit and a deadline has passed, to contact the admissions officer that would represent your area and tell them that this is the situation, and that you're going to be submitting late. And I would do that proactively. I would say that I'm not going to meet this deadline, and this is why, just so they have a heads up. So yeah, someone said here, if a student receives a high SAT score, will that benefit them? People have said that or college admissions officers say that it is not going to take away from a college application. Now, you're absolutely right that that doesn't necessarily mean it won't better another one. So if a student maybe has met the grade requirements and some other requirements, and then they have this terrific SAT score, that might be enough to give them admission. If another student has equally good grades and as in the same position, a high SAT score might be what tips the boat in the favor of the person who's submitting the score. But school said that it won't be a requirement. So what I've heard that most schools will be doing is measuring the students who have not submitted a score in a separate category, so that those students are fairly represented in an applicant pool. And they typically do this with applications in general. Applications are put into different piles of similar to the way that students go through picking a school. So there are their A+ categories, their reach schools, and then there are their candidates who are their maybes, and then there are the candidates that are no. So for the maybes, an SAT score might be something that would sway someone, but there are also a lot of other ways that you can impress upon schools that you would be a terrific addition to their school community that they will be looking at this year more so than ever. Okay. What's the difference between early action and early decision? Early action and early decision, it's typically done based on a state school versus a private school. Depending on the school, though, because every school is different. So early decision means that that decision is binding. And most schools have a policy where you can apply to one private school early decision and one public university early decision. If you get into one of those schools, the public or the private, you pick from whatever school that you got into, and then you have to forego any other schools that you would be thinking about. So you enter into a binding agreement with that school. Early action is is more fluid. So you can apply to a lot of different schools early action, and you're not in a binding contract like you would in early decision. Again, the great thing about early action and early decision is that it gives schools a way to see that you are really interested in their school and that this is a first choice for them. Of course, if it's early decision, then you are telling them that this is my number one school. This is where I want to go. If you extend me an acceptance, I'm going to take it. And for schools, that allows them to fill up their class with students that they know are going to accept their acceptance letters. And that really helps the school plan and, again, hand out merit awards and figure out monetarily how they can bring together their class. Okay, sorry. Does that mean we should encourage our kids to join and have Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn accounts? My son does not have any of this. He's in 11th grade. That's a parent by parent decision. I think LinkedIn is probably the safest bet for these. However, schools are going to be looking at the fact that 95% of students have social media accounts. And a school is going to expect that a student is going to interact in some way with them online. If a parent is really concerned about a student's online presence, then go right to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a really safe, secure place for students that they can definitely interact with universities. However, the more social media platforms that your students on, if they're interacting with schools, especially in a good way, the caveat I should say here is that if you are going to be interacting with schools, make sure that your accounts show all of the great things that that you've accomplished and the person that you are, as opposed to partying and being crazy with friends. They definitely want to see that you have a social life, but they also want to see that you have an academic prowess and that you're going to add to their community. So this is a great question. Will schools focus more on college essays? Absolutely. I was reading an article, I think it was the other day, in the New York Times, and they interviewed 12 different college admissions directors. And the statement that was echoed from all of these college admissions directors was the essay is going to be more important than ever. And I will say, with an essay, and I have sat through many of conversations with deans of admission, it has to be authentic and it has to be you writing it. If it is a 40-year-old writing your essay, they absolutely know and can tell. The writing style of an adult is so different from a student that it doesn't make sense to potentially take yourself out of the running because you're having someone else write your essay. Someone proofreading it, checking grammar, things like that. Absolutely, that's something I would highly recommend. But the essay should be something that is in your voice and something that is authentic. And the other thing I want to say really quickly in terms of the essay is that this is your time to shine in terms of how you have reacted to COVID. So COVID has changed absolutely everything in our world. And students who say, hey, this is really hard. Virtual learning was difficult, and this is how I overcame it. Or, one of my parents is out of work because of COVID, or I lost someone I love because of COVID. Sharing these stories and relating how you persevered through this really, really difficult and unprecedented time is going to resonate with college admissions counselors. They want to see that you have perseverance, that you have grit, that you have tenacity, and even when faced with a really difficult time, that you've managed to come out on top. And I'm just going to share one story that I thought was really interesting from a student that I was working with. She is a softball player. And of course, last spring, when she wanted to play softball and into the summer, there were not organized sports were not happening. So she decided to get creative and she started playing on a league with her dad. She was playing with all men, high school student. She was the catcher. She definitely wasn't, the star player on the team. They were able to do it socially distant, and they were able to do all these things. But what it did was it showed schools, and she is writing her essay about that. But it showed schools, hey, she was still able to shine. She was still able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and really showcase her attributes and her skills in a really difficult time. So I would encourage students to reflect on COVID and how it has changed you and how you've persevered, because you all have. Okay, sorry guys, I'm going through the questions. Is there a way to stand out in your college application if you have not participated in any clubs but have done sports? Absolutely. And what I see from college admissions officers is that they want to see quality over quantity. So if you are a diver and you dedicate your time to diving, and you wake up at 5 a.m. and you're at swim practice, they know that you can't be the president of the school and the head of the newspaper and all those other things, because you've really dedicated yourself to one thing. And especially with selective schools, they want to see that quality over quantity. So dedicating yourself to a few select things is going to get you farther than doing different clubs and activities. Sorry. So okay. Sorry about that. We discussed that. Okay. I'm going to start going through our slides, and then I'm going to go back to some of these questions that you all are asking, typically about SAT scores. Oh, just one quick answer I want to give. If you applied to start a certain semester, get accepted, and then decide to take a gap year, will you still be able to go to the same school? Absolutely. So as long as you signed a school contract and paid a deposit, you can take a gap year, you can take time off because of COVID or financial reasons, and the school will honor that application. Okay, so again, the great thing about our system is that it is going to highlight and help prompt you to highlight the things that make you unique. With a lot of students, they don't do a lot of self-reflection. A lot of times students are modest. And once students start on the platform and they start putting in their accomplishments and their grades and all of the other things that make them unique, they start seeing, and parents especially start saying, wow, my kid's really accomplished a lot. And I always like to think of the myKlovr's platform as very similar to a LinkedIn profile, but for students. So we are going to collect the same information, but we're also going to offer advice to the student. So an applicant portfolio, and this goes to one of the questions that I just saw. How do you stand out in the admissions process without SAT and ACT scores and less access to extracurriculars? So one of the best ways to stand out is through a curated applicant portfolio. And we do this on the myKlovr's platform. So when the student is going through and putting in the things that make them unique, which I will get to in a minute, that's how you're going to stand out. Before COVID, schools were really limited, and they were looking at just the common application. They were looking at just this set of grades and SAT scores that doesn't tell a lot about students. And quite frankly, it doesn't give the schools a lot of information that they need to make better decisions. So by having a more holistic approach and sharing this information with the school so that they can find reasons to accept you, that we really encourage students to do that. So if you don't have SAT and ACT scores, you can stand out in multiple ways. You can stand out on social media. You can stand out by doing things that are really, again, novel during COVID. And there are a lot of virtual opportunities that I will get into as well, that you can do things online. So hang on one second. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so the one thing that that I want to stress here is that, and we put an emphasis on this in the on the myKlover platform. We really concentrate on college and career, and the reason why we make that distinction is so that students can start seeing the way that college is going to correlate with the career or the industry that they find interesting. So the way that we approach it is through a career assessment. And typical career assessments don't work for high school students, and quite honestly, they don't work for most people in general. What we see is about 95% of students who take our career assessment finish it. And that is compared to rates of 10 and 20% of typical career assessments. So when we're looking at a career assessment, we do everything from a psychographic manner. All you're going to do is you're going to look at a picture. You can see here that it shows working with wildlife. You're going to say that's me or that's not me. And then the system is going to take you through a bunch of different questions like this, and they're going to generate two different things. They're going to generate different personality and interest traits that you have, and then they're also going to, it's also going to generate different industries and careers that you might be interested in. I know a lot of you are thinking in ninth grade, why would I care? The reason why you care is well, twofold. So ninth and 10th graders are going to see on the platform different volunteering opportunities that are available in the industries and the careers that they're interested in. So if you're interested in going to be a chef and you think this would be a terrific career for you, there are different opportunities that you can actually test those careers out, so you're not 2 years into college already paying tuition and decide to change your major. So it really helps students go through different career choices. And as you get older and you're in 11th and 12th grade, we have internships and actual employment opportunities on the platform. So after you've gone through and looked at different careers and industries that might interest you, you're going to be connected with internships, virtual and in person, depending on what area you're in and how that correlates with COVID. But you're going to see different opportunities that you can test out the waters literally in an internship or employment way to see if it's an industry or a career that you would be interested in. And the cool thing about our platform is that a lot of companies want to interact with high school students and tell you guys the careers that they see on the horizon, and they don't have a way to interact with students who are going to be their next generation of workforce. So it's really exciting for companies to be able to offer those internships and tell students about industries that they might not have been aware of. The other thing that this is really important for, and this is, I think now more than ever, applying to a school and knowing what you want to do at that school is really important. It demonstrates that this school is different from others because they offer the major that you're interested in. And that really stands out to schools, whether it's in an essay, whether it's in one of the supplemental essays from the school. It's a really great way to show a school that you are truly interested in them because they have a unique offering. So hang on. So the other thing we highlight on the myKlover platform are honors and awards. A lot of students, especially when you start off in ninth grade, you tend to forget what you've done by 11th grade when you're applying to, or 12th grade when you're applying to college. So what we do is we encourage students to start chronicling their awards and achievements. And again, like I said before, students and their parents are really surprised when they have cultivated this profile and this portfolio online, how much they've actually accomplished. It really resonates when you're looking back at a year, what you've done, what you've been able to accomplish, what positions you've been able to hold. And it really shows a nice trajectory for the student. So on the myKlover platform, we have the ability for students to record a personal video or statement. And this is done on different platforms, but this is, again, a way that you can talk about what makes you unique, what skills you have, what abilities you have, what interests you have that are going to differentiate you from other students. And again, students don't always know what does differentiate them. So when you've taken your career assessment, that is going to literally give you these keywords that you can use to say, I'm an innovator, I'm a leader, all of the different qualities that are going to be buzzwords for the college admissions officers. The other thing that the platform does is it assesses your emotional quotient. We hear a lot about EQ or IQ, but we don't hear a lot about EQ. And we have a simple test that students take, and they are able to assess what kind of emotional quotient they have. So whether they're resilient, whether they're a sympathetic person, empathetic person, you name it, we evaluate it and then prompt students to use those words and the way that that they have assessed themselves to describe themselves to someone who doesn't know them. College athletic eligibility. I'm going to put a link a shout out to an organization that helps with this because this is a huge issue for athletes. A lot of athletes are really concerned about how they can stand out to schools because their sport has either been put on hold or they can't compete at all, or they're competing in a limited capacity where different scouts can't come and see them. So I'm going to provide a specific resource to college athletics eligibility. But I would go back to the example that I mentioned before. Schools understand that students are struggling, and they understand that COVID has certainly restricted an athlete's eligibility. So they're really trying to work with students. So don't let this be something that is an undue burden. I'm going to look at questions really quick and then get to the next slide. Okay. Sorry, guys. If my GPA is lower than their average, but I have an SAT score which is higher than their average, would that help me in the admissions process, or would it be ineffective? That totally depends on the school. I can tell you that most schools, they take GPA with a grain of salt because they know that grades are often inflated at schools. So a lot of schools will tell you that, okay, an SAT score is a better way to subjectively or objectively look at a student, and other schools will say exactly the opposite. So I think it can't hurt, and certainly with this year being so crazy, you do the best you can with what you have and try to show your interpersonal skills and other skills to the school. So can you submit college applications without test scores at this time? Absolutely. Schools are 100% behind suspended testing. So they know that a lot of students haven't been able to take SATs or ACTs. So if you can't take them or you haven't taken them, you just need to demonstrate that and tell whoever the admissions officer that you are one of the students who has been affected by the SAT and ACT COVID restrictions. Schools have said without a doubt that a student should never put their own health or the health of their family on the line to take an SAT or ACT. So by no means would you want to sacrifice health or safety to take one of those tests. If you change your mind that the school is your first choice after you apply, should you let the admissions officers know, or is it too late? That question depends if you've applied early decision or early action. Certainly, if you've been accepted to another school and you have accepted the spot at the school, you should let other schools know so that they have the opportunity to admit other students. Short of that, I would absolutely wait until you've gotten not only your acceptance letter, but you've decided on what school you want to go to. Is it true that you will be able to receive fee waivers concerning SAT fees, that they're eligible for fee waivers concerning application fees? Let's see. I know that there are fee waivers for the SAT and for applications. You just have to meet the requirements of that school, and they differ from school to school. How can my daughter differentiate herself when applying to a school that doesn't include the personal essay as a part of the application process? Great question. I think the way that you can do that is through the channels that we talked about. You can engage on social media. You can certainly engage with alumni. You can even reach out to the admissions department and ask that question specifically. How can I stand out, and how can I just want to show my interest in the school. I'm really interested. This is my situation. College admissions officers want to accept students who really want to be at their school just as much as you want to be accepted to the school of your choice. If everyone is doing an essay on COVID, how will you stand out? That's a great question. And I think everyone's take on COVID is going to be so different, and it's affected everyone so differently that I think you can still be unique. Certainly you can write about whatever you want, but I think in a time like this, and we're seeing things that we've never seen before as an entire global community, if you can relate that to an experience that you've had where you have persevered, it's really going to show who you are as a person. So again, if you feel that you don't have a memorable experience related to COVID, then certainly talk about something else. But if you can relay something that you have overcome in spite of COVID, it would be terrific to write about that. Regarding social media interactions, would direct email be even better? You can definitely do that. I think you want to be careful not to annoy people, but short of annoying them, they are trying to figure out what students are interested in their schools, and the traditional measures that typically come from the ACT and the SAT, where you fill out the schools that you're interested in when you take it. That's what a lot of schools rely on to see who's interested in their school. So if they don't have those measures right now, it definitely would not hurt to send a letter saying that you're interested, or potentially connect with a notable alumni or an alumni that you know, and tell them about what makes you unique. When is the best time to plan for college campus tours? I don't know of any school right now that is doing college campus tours right now, because of the fact that schools that are able to offer their students an in-person experience are limiting the amount of people that can get into and off of campus just really restrictively. So they are taking a lot of care and consideration to make sure that students are doing the absolute minimum from a social perspective. So they don't want to bring anyone in from potentially out of state or out of the area and contaminate the college environment that they're working so hard to keep COVID free. So let's go here. I'm going to answer one question, and then I'll talk about the slide. At what stage of admission do potential students have to write an essay for college? Do all colleges require references from previous teachers? So that's a great question too. A couple different things. First of all the common application is the most It literally is the most common app used to apply to college. And on the Common App, students are going to get references from 2 teachers that are core teachers. So this is going to be your core subject teachers, literature, math, science, those core classes. The problem with that is that those core classes and those references aren't always the people who know the student the best. So a student can submit additional reference letters and additional items that are going to speak to their character, but they have to do that in a different way. So if you're applying through the coalition application, you can actually put those things in your locker. If you're applying through the Common App, you can use a URL that is going to link to your myKlovr's portfolio, to your LinkedIn portfolio, or you can use, again, these different outreach methods with notable alumni, professors, any way that you can engage the school and show that demonstrated interest. So the other thing I just want to go over really quickly, and then I'll go back to answering all questions. We have these goal recommendations, and this is where the simulated college counselor experience comes into play. So when a student, and here we have an experience from a college athlete, but when a student is on the platform, we are going to tell a student, when they put information, what they can do to better their chances of getting into either a school that is a reach school, a scholarship that might be out of their league at this point, but to better those opportunities. So we are going to proactively tell them that they need to join a club, or that they haven't shown any community or volunteering hours this semester, or even as granular as, hey, it looks like you didn't do well in Spanish last quarter, you need to get a tutor, or PSAT is coming up, you need to register. All of these things that are the minute details that really are going to help you in the long term create goals, and again, get on that right path to getting into the school of their choice. So I talked about best schools. I'm going to answer the rest of the questions that I can. So my son's first year and a half of high school, he was a B student, well below expectation. The last year and a half, he has been an A student, and he scored really well in the SAT, and we were hoping that this would offset his slow start. Do you think it will be in this new world? Does it really impact the type of school to apply? First of all, even before COVID, this is the ideal question, or this is the ideal candidate that a school wants. High school is a difficult time, and it is a time of transition. So schools absolutely understand that your first 2 years might not have been stellar. And as long as you continue to take challenging courses, and you've increased the rigor of the courses that you've been taking and the grades that you've been making in school, that is absolutely fine to have a slow start and then really shine at the end of high school. And that is what schools want to see. I was at UVA last year speaking to the dean of admission, and this was something that she could not stress enough. She was saying that students who have shown that, hey, high school was hard and I didn't do well, and then I took everything and I did my best and I tried my hardest, and look at what I was able to accomplish. They want that story. And again, that goes to perseverance, that goes to grit and tenacity. And that is an ideal experience. And even before COVID, I would say that's terrific. And it sounds like your student is on the right path. For the myKlovr's system, is it a one-time payment or monthly payments? It is a yearly contract that is done in monthly payments. So the way that we usually correlate it is that we want students to be on the platform at least once a month. And typically, if there's a charge associated with that, it prompts them to really use the system. And when they use the system, we can best help them with that proactive advice. What is the best narrative to write essays? Is it best to write a first-person story, or is it okay to do it more scholarly? I think either is fine. I tend to see essays that are written in the first person, but maybe it would stand out if you did write something that wasn't typical and was done in a manner that was atypical. So I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer for that. Does reporting any involvement in clubs or volunteer services before high school have any relevance on college applications? Yes and no. So colleges want to see, and this is a great question, by the way. Colleges want to see that you are dedicated to something. So if you've been in the Boy Scouts since you were in 5th grade, absolutely say that you have done this since you were in elementary school. If you have had a blog since you were in middle school, absolutely mention that has that has been your the case for you. If you're saying that you did great on a test in 7th grade, they don't care. Unless, of course, you're taking a high school or college level course in middle school, which I have seen. But short of that, you really, they really want to see things from 9th grade on. Okay, we talked about this. So, had academic and athletic scholarship to a private school for sophomore and junior year. Due to financial and family related challenges, I had to return to a public school for senior year. Will this influence or impact my acceptance to the school or require additional explanation? Great question. And yes, it will require additional information, but that's not a bad thing. Explaining to a school why you left that's all they want to know. They want to know why you left. Certainly your circumstance is absolutely understandable and it would not be held against you in any way. In fact, I think that is one of those instances that really shows that you have been able to meet a challenge and that you have been able to rise to the occasion and do well under a really difficult circumstance, which is switching schools senior year. So absolutely, it will not affect you negatively at all. What is a curated application portfolio or profile? Is this a resume? What if the school doesn't take supplemental information? Do you recommend doing the COVID essay? So a couple different things. If they don't take supplemental information, I think this is the year that you could probably say, I know you don't typically take it. Are you taking it this year? And I think that'll be on a case by case basis, depending on, of course, the school, the size of the school, and the strength of your application. But it doesn't hurt to ask, especially in COVID times. So I would definitely recommend at least asking. Okay, would this be available for international students as well? Absolutely, as long as the student is preparing to enter a school within the United States, it will work for any student. Is it too late for myKlovr's to help a senior? It's never too late. And I think the thing that we can offer to a senior right now that is really important are the virtual opportunities. So on myKlovr's, not only are you going to have access to virtual campus tours and, of course, guidance, but you're also going to have access to a partner of ours and an NSHSS partner that does virtual volunteering. So a lot of the activities that students have been involved in, obviously, they're put on hold, but there are virtual ways that you can still help the community, that you can still excel in different industries or careers that you're interested in. So I would certainly say it's never too late. Okay. What is the best way to stand out if you have not participated in sports or clubs? I think, again, great question. I think that it is important to explain why you didn't do those things. It could be for social reasons, it could be for any reason, but I think use your essay then to explain why that was the case. And I think that's a good just just good advice in general. If there is something that is going to explain why you got bad grades one year, why you struggled one year, a life circumstance that you were going through, there is always a chance to either say to an admissions officer or on the application from the school, is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself? And this is that time to say, hey, I struggled here, or hey, this happened this year. And schools will absolutely understand whatever you've gone through. And again, they just want to see that perseverance. Okay, can you apply without FAFSA? Absolutely, but I've talked to a lot of financial advisors, and even if you think you don't qualify for FAFSA, you should absolutely still fill it out because first of all, you never know. And second of all, when parents have more than one student in high school, or in college, or one that's applying and one that's already in college, that's going to give you different student loan rates. The other thing that I'll mention quickly, myKlovr's has an entire section devoted to financial wellness and a family's financial integrity. So we pair each one of our students with an actual person who will take them through the financial part of the application process, because in our minds, making sure that you go to a school that you can afford and that you have student loans that are doable and that you have a major that's going to pay off is really important to us. So we take a lot of pride in making sure that families are financially whole before they send their kids to college and after. Will schools really make a note that we're interested if we send them an email asking a question or write a comment on one of their social media platforms? Absolutely, without a doubt. So schools have different platforms that they use that are going to look at who's commented on their social media. Just like any business or organization would do, they want to see what is attracting visitors, what is attracting people, what people are liking, what they're not liking. So they're run like that, and they are 100% keeping track of who looks at what, who emails, who is showing interest. And I think now more than ever, they don't have all of the traditional metrics that they used to use. So if you can stand out, you should. Okay. So sorry, I'm trying to get through questions that are unlike things that we've talked about. I believe supplemental essays are very important. If the prospective student already knows what they want for their career and can match their college degrees to that college's specific program to demonstrate fit. What if a college doesn't ask for a supplemental essay? Can we submit one in some manner? Great question. It depends on the school. So I think you're absolutely right that if you can demonstrate that you want to be a microbiologist and the school that you're applying to has the best microbiology program, and this has been a passion of yours since you were 5, that's what they want to see. Now, in terms of how you're going to relay that information to them, it depends on the school. So some schools will have supplemental essays. If they don't, you can email. If they don't, then you can get in touch with a professor who might be, the head of the microbiology department. There are lots of ways to reach out, and it's not going to be seen as being a pain in the butt. It's going to be seen as demonstrating interest. Let's see what else. I've answered this. Okay. Are virtual tours as informative as in-person tours? I don't think you can replicate that in-person experience. But I will say that at least on our platform, we've gone to great lengths to make sure that students aren't seeing a marketing video, that they're not seeing something that the college has cultivated. They're seeing something that a student has cultivated. So it's from the perspective of a student, and it should give them a better feel However, most students will tell you that when they stepped onto a campus, they just knew. When they looked at people around them, they knew that this was the school that they wanted to go to. But a lot of students pre-COVID, visiting colleges is expensive, and a lot of students didn't do that pre-COVID. So it's definitely not a must-do, and especially with the pandemic, there isn't the choice. So doing the virtual tour, you can also speak to students who already are at the school, and most schools have this already set up. But you can get a better feel for how you would fit in on that campus. Next question, if you've worked somewhere to help your family, for example, but there's no paperwork evidence of this, like taxes, would it still be good to mention in an essay or application? Absolutely. One of the biggest things that schools are concerned about, and that schools will definitely put credence on, is the family experience. So if you have family obligations, and this is certainly true in the coalition application, if you have family obligations, whether it's working, whether it's taking care of a grandparent, or even taking care of a sibling, schools want to know that, hey, I couldn't do 10 clubs because I have responsibilities within my family. And that is a huge thing to them. That says, okay, not only could I balance my schoolwork, but I also had all of these other responsibilities on top of it that I was able to maintain. So that's a huge benefit. There doesn't have to be any paperwork behind it. Schools can really spot authentic content from students. So definitely put that in an essay or in another way of communication to the school. If I had a situation which caused my junior year GPA to be worse than my sophomore and freshman year grades, can that be explained somewhere in the Common App? In the Common App, I believe that they have a section that says at the bottom, is there anything else you want us to know about you? If it's not there, then there's certainly a place on the school's application. And if it's not in either of those places, then you want to take the third route, and you want to email the admissions officer directly and tell them what happened. They are 100% understanding. People know that life happens and that we all have really difficult circumstances at different times. And if yours happened to happen during junior year, it's 100% understandable. And all you have to do is explain why, what happened, and this is how you dealt with it. Again, this is that perseverance that they're looking for. So turn the negative into a positive. Get to the next question. Sorry. How would myKlover help a student who's already in 12th grade? I think that any kind of proactive guidance for students right now is really wanted and needed by students. So if a student is in 12th grade, yes, you're not going to have the kind of guidance that we would give a 9th grader, but you can still change things within your trajectory. You can see internships that are available. You can see volunteering opportunities that are available. You can go on virtual college tours. You can benefit from the financial wellness that we have for you and your family. So it's never too late. Do colleges want to see AP tests or AP classes? Is it okay to take the class without taking the test? This depends on the school. So I don't know if you all are familiar with the coalition application, but the coalition application is an application used by a lot of universities, and it was actually drafted by college admissions officers themselves. They didn't like the Common App, and they didn't like what the Common App was asking. They felt like they were getting a homogenous group of applicants, and they wanted really dynamic applicants. So they came up with their own application. And on their application, they limit the amount of AP classes that you can put on your application. So you might have taken 20, but I believe they only allow you to put in 4. So again, it's trying to get that overstressed overachiever out of the picture and bring someone into the applicant pool who has a general love of learning. So with AP classes, it really depends on your school. If you are applying to an Ivy League school, they're certainly going to want to see that you've taken AP classes, and if you were able to take the test last year, or if you're able to take it this year, definitely do so. Where is myKlover located and how long has it been around? We are virtual. So we are a system that is completely online. And our headquarters are in New York City and Washington, D.C., but we are across the nation. And we've been around for about 4.5 years. We spent 2 of those 4.5 years just coming up with the data to be able to match students with schools and opportunities. And then we took about a year to test all of that data and all of the algorithms to see if they actually worked. I am a student athlete. If I found a school that I like that hasn't reached out to me yet, should I contact a coach or admissions counselor? Absolutely. Be proactive. This is the time to really take a chance, and they don't know you're there just as much as they don't know you're interested unless you tell them you're interested. So definitely reach out. Okay. Sorry guys, I'm just going through these. If I'm not sure about what program I want to get into, what should I put on applications? Great questions. Just put a great question. Just put that you are undecided, and most students are undecided. So don't feel bad or don't worry about that. However, if you can go in knowing something that you're interested in, which is why we encourage students to do the college or the career finder, it really does help, because you can have a university that has a specific major that really appeals to you, and then of course you get that fit. Okay, let's see. How can we use myKlover to apply to colleges? You can't use myKlover specifically, but what you will use is all of the information that you've put into the system. You'll use that on the Common App, and you can certainly submit myKlover as a supplemental part of your portfolio, as a supplemental part of your application. Okay, this is a great question. If I'm accepted to a university, can my attendance be revoked, or my admittance be revoked if my grades were to slip a bit? Yes. Your acceptance is it's contingent, and it can be revoked for a lot of different reasons. We've seen over the past couple of years that students have had their acceptance letters rescinded because they've done things on social media that have gotten back to the school and don't reflect well. They have chosen to not do well their senior year, their second semester senior year. So absolutely they can revoke that at any time up until you get on campus. And even then, if you're not doing something that is up to their code or puts them in a bad light, they can expel you from the school. If I've already picked a school, should I still apply to others? Absolutely. You don't know what ones you're going to get into, and it's better to get into a lot of them than have one and have it not work out. I can't settle on one major that I want to apply for, and I need to help figuring out what I want to study in college and how that will apply to my career. Do you recommend anything other than the myKlover search engine to figure this out? Certainly you can take different tests online that are going to put you in the right different career paths and different interests. The problem with that is that something that might sound really good online in actuality might not be what you want to do. So we encourage students to test out those fields, and if you can get a volunteering opportunity, an internship opportunity, or even an opportunity to ask questions of someone who's already in that field, then do so that way. Okay, get to a few others. Talked about this. Sorry, guys. For 21st century scholars, I am late in completing the requirements, and I use ScholarTrack and Naviance to work on it, but some things that they need me to do, I have no access to. My graduation year is 2020. What can I do? I would have to look at that specifically. With Naviance, the one caveat that I will say is that Naviance is only going to give you the historical data based on your high school. So it's going to tell you that if your SAT scores this and your GPA is this, then this is your chances of getting into a school. The problem with that is twofold. First of all, the demographics of a school are going to change from year to year. So if you're applying to a college that this year has 27 people who applied from California, and last year they only had 13, that data is going to be skewed. Also, since we're in COVID and we've never seen an application season like this, we're dealing with something completely different. So historical data is only going to get you so far. So I would caution students to not rely on one specific platform that primarily uses historical data. We have gone over, and Grace, I'm gonna, what's the protocol here? Grace, I'm waiting for you. Okay, well guys, I'm gonna do a couple more questions and then I'm gonna get off, but so let me see if there are other questions that I haven't answered. How much is myKlover? myKlover is at a discounted rate because you guys are members of NSHSS. So I believe it is offered to members for $8 per student per month. When would you recommend a high school junior class of 2022 apply to colleges? You don't need to worry about applications until next year, but you will need to have all of your information and all of your things done by senior year. Now, if you're applying early decision or early action, you will have that November deadline next year. And then if you're applying regular decision, you have a later deadline. So that is my presentation, and I truly appreciate all of you listening and all of your wonderful questions, and I wish everyone the best of luck in your college and career journey, and just know that everything is going to work out. It always does, and you guys are all awesome, and I can't wait to hear what great things this class contributes to the world. Thank you so much, everyone.